Hi everyone, this week we are going to cover the topic of price discrimination. I will talk about the case of price discrimination for monopolists, but we can generalize this to firms in general. Any firm with a bit of market power will, if they can, try to use price discrimination. First, the usual disclaimer. I do not legally allow this content to be published without my consent. I will take it down if I see it uploaded online, and I will report whoever uploaded it. The outline for this lecture. I will talk about the definition of price discrimination. In particular, we distinguish three types of price discrimination: first degree, second degree, third degree. And finally, I will briefly talk about the welfare effects of price discrimination in terms of consumer surplus, producer surplus, and total surplus. So what is price discrimination? Price discrimination consists in selling the same product to different buyers at different prices. It is also called market segmentation. We distinguish three different types. First degree price discrimination, also called perfect price discrimination, consists in charging every consumer his or her reservation price. The reservation price is the maximum amount a consumer is willing to pay for a certain amount of units of the good. So we will see that perfect price discrimination consists in extracting all of the consumer surplus by charging exactly the maximum amount he is willing to pay. Second degree price discrimination is called indirect price discrimination. Here, consumers choose a price or a quantity bundle proposed by the firm. In this sense, it is called indirect. The firm is not directly imposing different prices to different customers. Rather, customers will choose what option they want, what bundle they want. This is why we say it's indirect. As opposed to third degree price discrimination, also called direct price discrimination, where consumers are charged a different price according to the group they belong to. In this practice, firms will be able to distinguish consumers based on observable characteristics, and then it will be able to charge different prices to different consumers. So, let's get into first degree price discrimination. Also called perfect price discrimination, the firm proposes a tariff such that each consumer has no surplus left after the purchase. Here, I call this a tariff because it is not only a price per unit, it will be an overall price for a certain quantity. In practice, it can be implemented through a two-part tariff. Not only the firm will propose a per unit price, in this case it will be equal to the marginal cost, but it will charge a fixed fee on top of that equal to the consumer surplus at the quantity purchased. I will show you how this looks like on a graph in the next slide. The idea is that the per unit price is the smallest possible price the firm can break even with. By charging a price equals to marginal cost for each unit, the firm is not making any profit. The firm will make profits on the fixed fee imposed on top of this per unit price. Because the per unit price is equal to the marginal cost, consumers are going to consume the efficient quantity, the Pareto efficient quantity. Then, the firm will impose a fixed fee equal to the consumer surplus that consumers derive from that quantity. This way, consumers are left with no net surplus after the purchase. So the monopolist is able to extract all of the consumer surplus. Because the per unit price is equal to the marginal cost, it is the perfect competition quantity, and the outcome is Pareto efficient. However, consumers are left with no surplus. They are pretty much indifferent between buying and not buying. Either they buy, they enjoy the goods, but given the price paid, they end up with no surplus, no extra utility, or they just don't buy the good, but they don't enjoy it either. It is Pareto efficient because total surplus is maximized and there is no other allocation that makes somebody better off without making somebody else worse off. Is it realistic? Think about it for a minute. If the firm is able to extract the full consumer surplus of every single consumer, then it means that it is able to tell what each consumer's demand function is. Everybody is different in real life. So everybody has a different willingness to pay, a different elasticity of demand, a different demand function. Implementing first-degree price discrimination means that the firm is able to charge a different fixed fee to each customer according to the consumer surplus they derive from the purchase. On one hand, this is hard to believe because firms do not have such knowledge. How can they acquire such knowledge? If they ask customers how much they're willing to pay, customers will never report their true preferences. They will always report something lower. If you ask me how much I am willing to pay for PlayStation 5, I will never tell you I'm willing to pay $500. Maybe that's what I'm willing to pay, but that's my maximum willingness to pay. If I say that to Sony, Sony could charge me $500. Instead, I would go with maybe I'm willing to pay $300. And that could be a price that Sony is willing to sell a PlayStation 5 for. So on one hand, it is not realistic because it is impossible for a firm to know every single consumer's demand function. On the other hand, it is simply not allowed because in this case, consumers are charged different prices for the same good, maybe for the same quantity, based on their individual characteristics. This is pretty much phase discrimination. Oh, you're a man, I'm going to charge a higher price because I know you're willing to pay more. Or you're white, or you have this religion, or you come from this country, and so on and so forth. And even if a firm was allowed to do it legally, it would be impossible. But first-degree price discrimination can serve as a benchmark. It is a case of price discrimination where the outcome is Pareto efficient. We can then use this as a benchmark to compare with second-degree price discrimination and third-degree price discrimination. So let's look at price discrimination on a graph. The right-hand graph is the uniform pricing monopoly graph. This is a graph taken from the previous lecture about monopolies. The left graph is what happens when a firm can implement perfect price discrimination. So, let's start with the right graph. We saw in the previous lecture that the monopolist will choose the quantity where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. At that quantity, the corresponding price per unit will be PM. The consumer surplus at that price and that quantity is equal to this blue triangle. The producer surplus is equal to this red square or rectangle. And we saw that the allocation is not Pareto efficient because we can make some consumers better off and we can make the firm better off as well if the firm was selling some extra units at a lower price than PM. But because we are talking about uniform pricing, there must be only one price on the market here, and PM is what maximizes the monopolist's profits. So the green area is the deadweight loss. If the firm is able to implement first-degree price discrimination, then it is going to charge a per unit price equal to the marginal cost, so that a consumer will consume the efficient quantity, Q star, and at that quantity, a consumer will experience that big triangle as a consumer surplus. If the firm knows the demand function of the consumer, then the firm can charge a fixed fee on top of the per unit price, so that fixed fee is equal to that big red triangle. At the end of the day, consumers are left with no surplus, and the firm was able to extract all of the surplus. There is no deadweight loss here, so the outcome is Pareto efficient, but consumers get nothing. Note that the right graph reports aggregate demand, but the left graph shows demand for one consumer. Each consumer will be charged a different fixed fee according to their own preferences. It doesn't make sense to charge a fixed fee on an aggregate demand. You cannot ask 100 consumers to pay an overall price of $100. You can only charge consumers one by one. Any questions about first-degree price discrimination? Okay. So as I said, this serves as a benchmark. The outcome is Pareto efficient, and now we're going to go through more realistic types of price discrimination that you and I have encountered in real life, and we're going to look at their particular features. Second-degree price discrimination, also called indirect price discrimination, consists in basing prices on the choices made by consumers. It works through self-selection in the sense that consumers are going to choose a specific bundle, which is composed of a quantity and a price. And by doing so, they will reveal the type of customers they are. The firm is not imposing a price on the customer. It is proposing different options for the same good, but different quantities at different prices, and consumers will choose what they prefer. The general idea is to offer different packages. It could be a price quantity package or a price quality package. And consumers pick the package they prefer the most. Consumers self-select into different demand groups from which the monopolist is able to extract additional consumer surplus through price discrimination. The advantage of this practice is that there is no need to directly identify demand groups. A firm only needs to know that there are different types of customers. It needs to know what types they are, what demand functions they are, but it does not need to tell what each customer is, what type each customer is. When a customer comes in, the firm has no way to know if it's a customer with a high willingness to pay or a low willingness to pay. It only knows that there are some people willing to pay a lot, and there are some people who are willing to pay a little. Then the firm will design the packages so that each type of customer will choose a different package. So, customers who pick the most expensive package will be the high type customers, the ones with the higher willingness to pay, and so on. There could be a potential issue called arbitrage. Arbitrage, it's a French word, is the activity of buying at a low price to resell somewhere else. If there are different packages proposed at different prices, somebody who's going to buy the cheap package might be able to resell it to a customer who maybe would have purchased the expensive package, but now can buy it from that customer at a slightly lower price. If arbitrage is possible, then firms will have a hard time to sell to each type of customers. Any pricing strategy that consists in proposing you options and you choose among them is second-degree price discrimination. Now let me walk you through an example that you have encountered many times. The BOGO example. Buy one, get second one for half price. Let's think about Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons makes sandwiches at a marginal cost of $2. So each sandwich costs $2 to produce, between getting the bread, getting the meat, getting the cheese, the lettuce, the spices, and getting an employee to take a couple minutes to make them. Every now and then, Tim Hortons offers some discounts, and one of them being, if you buy one sandwich for a full price, the second sandwich is 50% off. Why is that? You probably have encountered cases like that in the clothing industry. When you buy clothes, very often you get BOGO discounts. You can get the first shirt for the full price, and any shirt that is on the same shelf will be priced at 50% if you buy one shirt already. Shoes as well, and so on. So why does Tim Hortons propose such an option? Well, first of all, Tim Hortons is able to identify different types of customers. Here, for simplicity, I distinguish two types of customers. We have the hungry customer, Henry, and the less hungry customer, Larry. Henry is willing to pay $8 for the first sandwich and $4 for the second sandwich. So, this is pretty much the demand for Henry. Larry, being less hungry, is willing to pay $6 for the first sandwich and $2 for the second sandwich. Both customers are willing to pay a lower price for the second sandwich due to decreasing marginal utility. They are probably willing to pay $0 for the third sandwich because they will be already full, satiated. Now, let's walk through three different types of pricing. The first one will be uniform linear pricing. We can go through different scenarios where we have different prices. You can check this at home. Tim Hortons will maximize profits if it charges $6 per sandwich. Why 6? Because at $6, both customers will buy one sandwich each. The profit will then be 6 times 2, $6 per sandwich, minus the cost of making 2 sandwiches. So 12 minus 4 makes 8. Imagine that Tim Hortons charges $5 per sandwich. Still, only 2 sandwiches will be sold. So the profits will be lower because the price is lower, but the cost is the same. If Tim Hortons charges more than $6, then only one customer will purchase, Henry. And if you take into account the costs, Tim Hortons will make less profits. So if Tim Hortons has to implement uniform linear pricing, $6 per sandwich is the way to go. Now, we went over first degree price discrimination. So what can Tim Hortons do if it's able to distinguish who is Henry and who is Larry? Well, it's going to charge the maximum price to Henry and the maximum price to Larry. $8 to Henry, and Henry buys a sandwich. He's willing to pay for it. $6 to Larry, and Larry buys a sandwich. He's willing to pay for it as well. Each buys one sandwich, and the profit will then be $8 coming from Henry, plus $6 coming from Larry, minus the cost of making two sandwiches. The profit is $10, which is higher than $8. Here, Tim Hortons can tell who Henry is and who Larry is, and it is able to impose a different price to each for the exact same product. But this is not feasible if types of customers cannot be identified. If Tim Hortons doesn't know who Larry is and who Henry is, it's not possible. Furthermore, if arbitrage is possible, then Henry and Larry could talk to each other, and Henry could ask Larry, can you buy two sandwiches for $6? And then I will buy one from you for $7 instead of buying it from Tim Hortons for $8. If arbitrage is possible, Tim Hortons will only sell to Larry. It will sell two sandwiches. This will lead to lower profits. Now, what can we do with indirect price discrimination? We have two types of customers. So Tim Hortons is going to propose two different options. The first option says, you want one sandwich? You pay $6 for it. The other one is the BOGO bundle. You can buy two sandwiches for $9. $6 for the first, $3 for the second. Now, why 6 and 3? Again, the idea is to make both customers buy, but one of them is going to buy the more expensive bundle. If it costs $9 to buy two sandwiches, then Henry is willing to pay for it. He's willing to pay $12 right now. So, if Tim Hortons charges $9 for two sandwiches, Henry will purchase. However, $9 for two sandwiches is too much for Larry, because Larry is only willing to pay 6 plus 2, $8 for two sandwiches. In this case, Henry will buy two sandwiches. He's going to purchase the BOGO combo, and Larry will buy only one sandwich. Each customer, they're both different, will get a different option. The profit will now be 6 times 2 coming from two sandwiches sold at $6 plus one sandwich sold for $3 minus the cost of making 3 sandwiches, which leads to $9. $9 is more than $8. $8 was the profit under linear pricing. So Tim Hortons managed to increase its profit by proposing a second option aimed at extracting the consumer surplus of the customer who has a higher willingness to pay. Any questions? So, this is only one example, and as I said, the clothing industry has plenty of those deals. The shoe industry has plenty of those deals as well. If you go to home furniture as well, you can buy one pillow and get a second one for 50%. Same with a set of bed sheets or chairs. BOGO is not the only example of second-degree price discrimination, however. Any store that proposes different options for the same good is implementing second-degree price discrimination. Let's go over a couple of examples. Quantity discounts and coupons. Customers with a low value for time or who are more price sensitive get a cheaper per unit price. I talk about low value for time because those are the ones who will take the time to collect the coupons, to gather them, to redeem them, and so on. Those in general are more price sensitive, which is why they take the time to collect the coupons so they can benefit from lower prices. Families, on the other hand, typically will buy in higher quantities because they have multiple people in the household, and by doing so, they will benefit from a cheaper per unit price. If you buy 2 pounds of meat, it's going to be cheaper per pound than buying maybe 500 grams or one piece of meat at a time. Think about pop, soda, chips, snacks. Typically pop, stores propose you to buy one bottle for, let's say, $2, or you have the option of buying a 6-pack or 12-pack for maybe $10, so that the price per bottle is lower when you buy in bigger quantities. Same for liquor. Think about beer. You can buy beer by the unit at the liquor store, which is in the fridge. It could be something like $2.50 or $3 for a beer. Or you could buy the same beer in the form of a 6-pack or 12-pack or 24-pack. Of course, a pack is more expensive than one single beer, but the price per beer is lower when you buy a pack than when you buy beers by the unit. This is a way to distinguish customers, the ones who are individual, who maybe just want to have one beer or two, one bottle of pop or two, just one piece of meat or two, from the ones who are willing to pay more because they also need a higher quantity, like families or somebody who gets ready for a barbecue. They will buy not meat by the piece, but probably by the pound or by the kilogram, or they will buy a 24-pack of beer instead of a 6-pack. Rate plans in communications. Those who demand more from their phone plan pay a higher fixed fee and a lower marginal cost. This also applies to cable and the internet. In the case of phone carriers, think about Canada. Canada has Fido, Koodo, Bell, Freedom, and maybe there's one or two more. Charter, I think, Virgin Mobile as well. They propose different plans that include a certain amount of texting or calling or data. The point of making different plans is to make customers with a higher willingness to pay buy a more expensive bundle. What's interesting about this is that what they call the cheapest bundle they propose is not meant to propose a plan for everybody, like they could maybe say in some advertisements. Oh, we have a plan for every budget. The goal of those phone carriers is to make those cheap bundles kind of bad in terms of features, in terms of what they contain, so that anybody who needs a bit more is going to have to pay a lot more for the next better bundle. For instance, Koodo proposes plans for $15 a month that consists of only texting or only calling, which includes, I believe, unlimited texting or unlimited calling, or unlimited of each, and including international texts and calls, I believe. No data. Anybody who needs to have both texts and calls, or anybody who needs data on top, will have to buy the next better bundle that is composed of those features. The price of those bundles becomes way more expensive. The cheapest bundle is $15. As soon as you want to get data, you have to pay something like $26. The goal of the phone carrier is not to make everybody purchase something. The goal is to make the cheapest bundle bad, so that anybody who needs a bit more will have to pay a way higher price to get it. And it is the same for people who need more data than what the second bundle proposes. As soon as you want more data, the price increases a lot more. The marginal cost of the firm doesn't really change. For them, providing you with 3 gigabytes or 4 gigabytes of data doesn't make a big difference. And you will pay a lower marginal price if you upgrade your plan. You will pay a higher fixed fee, however. It also comes with internet bundles. You can get a basic internet, then you can get a high-speed internet connection, and so on. Same with the cable. Price drops through either time or sales. Some goods see their price decrease over time. You might think this is a consequence of obsolescence. Maybe let's think about something like a phone or any other electrical technological good. They get obsolete over time because there is a better, faster version that is going to come out the year after. That decreases the attractiveness of that product, which could explain why the price decreases. There is also the narrative that those who wait for the price to decrease are the ones who are more price sensitive, and they will get a cheaper price. So patient consumers have a low value of the good and they will be more price sensitive, as opposed to the ones who want to get the latest version of, let's say, an iPhone. Price drops through sales are the same thing. Sales are planned every year. There is something like some days like Boxing Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and so on all year round. In the meantime, goods are priced at a regular price. Sales are meant to select customers who do not want to buy the good at full price, or at least right now, who are willing to wait for sales to occur, and then they will buy. Without sales, those customers will never buy those goods. In fact, an interesting feature of sales in general is that sometimes a week before some sales, the price of many goods are increasing, the price tag. Why is that? The idea is that it will anchor consumers' expectation of the price of a good. If they see that this is priced at $100 and they know that next week there are sales, let's say a 50% off sale, then they will see this as a good deal and will think, oh, I got my piece of clothing, let's say a shirt, for $50 instead of $100. It's a good deal. Well, there are other times of the year where there are no sales, where the shirt might be actually priced at $50. Giving the impression of making a deal will give incentives to customers. It will give them incentives to purchase. The idea is to anchor their expectation of the price of a shirt and think, oh, the regular price of a shirt is $100. So if I have a 50% off and I get it for $50, it's a great deal. So you make them expect a shirt to be priced that much. They see it's a good deal because it's $50 relative to $100 is a very good deal. So it gives them more incentive to buy. But in absolute terms, $50 might be already a lot for a shirt. And it might actually be the price of the shirt the rest of the year. Tying. Some products can be bought only if another one is bought with it. In this case, we say they are tied. Those who buy tied products pay more for the original product. They might have a willingness to pay for a certain good. But if this good is tied to another product, then they have to buy both together, and they will pay a higher price than just the price of the good, of the original good they were interested in. Video games and consoles do that a lot. If you want to play a video game, you need to buy the corresponding console. Video formats. These days, the Blu-ray format is pretty much the standard when you want to watch a movie or something like that, unless you're watching directly on the computer. But around 15 years ago, when Blu-rays came out, there was a race to adopt a video format standard. Sony, who is the maker of Blu-rays, now I think more firms are making Blu-rays, was competing with Philips, who had a format called HDVD. The quality of the movies were pretty much the same. The video quality was pretty much the same. It was all about having a device that can read HDVD movies versus Blu-ray movies. Sony won the race. I believe one of the reasons is because they they integrated a Blu-ray player in their video game consoles since PlayStation 3. So many people already had a Blu-ray player if they already own a PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, or now PlayStation 5. So that increased the demands for Blu-ray formats. So tying usually consists in linking two products which are related and sell them together. It is a special case of what we call bundling. Bundling consists in selling things in a bundle, but they do not have to be related necessarily. The idea is that you might have a high willingness to pay for one good and a low willingness to pay for another. At the same time, I might have the opposite willingness to pay, a lower one for the first good and a higher one for the second good. The problem with that is that if the monopolist wants to maximize his profits, he might have to charge a low price for both goods so that both of us buy the product. Instead, the monopolist can put them together in a bundle by mixing high willingness to pay and low willingness to pay. He can charge then a high price for the bundle overall, and both of us might still buy the bundle. Although we have a low willingness to pay for one of the goods. Cable bundles have that. If you get a cable subscription, you might be interested in a couple of channels for which you have a certain willingness to pay. You might have a lower willingness to pay for other channels, but other consumers might have a high willingness to pay for those channels and a low willingness to pay for the channels you like. By bundling them together, the monopolist can charge a higher price and both types of customers would purchase. It is the same for the Microsoft Office pack. Some people might be interested in Excel. Some people might be interested in PowerPoint. Some people might be more interested in Microsoft Word. By putting them together and charging an overall high price, the monopolist will be able to increase its profits as opposed to one price for Word, one price for Excel, and so on. All you can eat in restaurants follows the same logic. Any questions about indirect price discrimination? I will go over other examples of indirect price discrimination in the tutorial that I will post sometime this week. Now, let's move on to third degree price discrimination, also called direct price discrimination. Here, the price of a good will be based on the identity of the demand group. So, the firm is one way or another able to distinguish different types of demands based on some observable characteristics. For instance, the firm can distinguish the students, seniors, kids, men, women, and so on. Maybe students have a different willingness to pay than working adults. They have a different demand function. If the firm is able to tell who is a student and who is not, then it is able to impose a certain price to students versus non-students. The identity of the demand group could be location-based. Stores like Safeway and Costco are operating in both Canada and the US, for instance. Some of the goods they sell are exactly the same, yet the prices could be different. In order to implement this type of price discrimination, the firm needs to identify consumer types one way or another, and it needs to be able to impose a price on a certain type of customer. And again, it needs to be able to prevent arbitrage opportunities. If students benefit from a discount, they might buy the good at a discounted price and leave the store and sell it outside of the store, resell it to other customers which are not students, and that would have to pay a higher price if they buy from the store. Typical example, if I get a student discount at the movie theater, I could buy my ticket, show my student ID, and then I could just leave the movie theater. I could pretend I'm going to get some food or something, and I could resell my movie ticket to somebody who cannot benefit from student discounts. This is arbitrage. In this case, the movie theater will only sell to one type of customer, the ones who get the discount. The point of distinguishing different demand groups, 2, 3, 4, how many demand groups there are, is to be able to exploit different elasticities to increase profits. Students tend to have a higher price elasticity of demand. They are more sensitive to price changes. Any price which is high will, if a price is high, students are not likely to buy a lot of the good, as opposed to maybe working adults or businessmen and so on. Same with senior. So by distinguishing different demand groups, the monopolist can pretty much apply the inverse elasticity rule to each of them separately. By proposing lower prices to a demand group with a higher elasticity of demand, like students, the firm will be able to sell higher quantities and increase its profits. On the other hand, it will be able to charge a higher price to the other type of customer and also increase its profits. If instead it charges a uniform price, then the optimal price will be somewhere in the middle. the firm doesn't want to lose too many customers by imposing a high price, but at the same time, a low price will not maximize profits. If it can implement third-degree price discrimination, then it can act like a monopolist on each demand group separately. In some cases, discriminating allows consumers to purchase the good which they wouldn't before, and hence total surplus can increase. As an example, back home, I would benefit from many students' discounts. At restaurants, in particular fast foods, McDonald's had student discounts, movie theaters, museums, and other types of entertainment services. I would go to the movie theater way more thanks to the student discount, because a movie ticket would cost me something like €7 or maybe €6, which is roughly $8, as opposed to a regular ticket priced at €8 or €9, which is 12 or 13 Canadian dollars. Here, the movie theater doesn't propose student discount, and I can tell you, I don't go to the movie theater as much here as I used to back home. So this can even increase consumer surplus of some demand groups. Since the firm is maximizing its profits anyway, total surplus might increase. And this is what I'm going to talk about in this last slide. Is price discrimination good or bad? Well, it depends on the types. Generally, if the firm produces less than under uniform pricing, so if the quantity sold is lower, welfare, total surplus, is lower. Total surplus between consumers and producers as a whole. If the firm produces more than under uniform pricing, welfare may be higher. Again, I talk about welfare as a whole, total surplus. Some in the process could be made worse off. Careful, however, I went over the case of first-degree price discrimination and said it was Pareto efficient, but consumers were getting nothing at all. Welfare is maximized. All of the surplus was going to the producer. So be careful about what you are analyzing. Are you looking at the effect on consumer surplus, producer surplus, or total surplus? The answer will change. In general, price discrimination tends to benefit the poor and hurt the rich. The idea is that when the firm can distinguish a demand group with a low willingness to pay or high price elasticity of demand, then it will charge a lower price to them, so they will be happier than under uniform pricing. The example I just gave you about movie tickets is exactly that. Either it's uniform pricing and I pay $12 for a movie ticket, or with a student discount, I could pay something like a couple dollars less, maybe $3 less or something, and I would definitely go to the theater more. On the other hand, if you apply price discrimination, you're going to charge a higher price to consumers with a higher willingness to pay. In the case of uniform pricing, the price is kind of an average between all of those consumers because they are all put together into one single aggregate demand. So the rich will probably prefer a uniform price. Of course, this is case by case, but the general rule is if the firm produces more than under uniform pricing, total surplus will increase. Firms will try to price discriminate as much as possible because they will always make higher profits than under uniform pricing. So if they can find a way to propose different bundles or charge a different price to different people, they will try to do so. That's it for this lecture on price discrimination. Have a good rest of your week and see you in the next one. Bye.